Pokémon Scarlet and Violet got a wildly mixed reception at launch from fans and critics alike, yet it still managed to sell 20 million copies by the end of 2022, making it one of the best-selling Switch games of all time. One thing that the games are consistently praised for though is its storytelling, so I was intrigued. I wanted to see if the story is as good as what people were making out, so in this video, I will be breaking down the entire story while sharing my thoughts and experiences along the way. The story begins with your player moving to the region of Paldea as you prepare to start your studies at the academy. You get a visit from Clavel, the director of the academy, a serious and understanding man whose goal is to bring out the very best in all of his students. He gives you a choice between the 3 starting Pokemon. This is also where we meet Nemona for the first time. Nemona is the student council president and a champion level trainer as well as your neighbour. She's an enthusiastic trainer who loves to battle at every chance she gets. She quickly becomes a good friend and your rival. After defeating Nemona in your first Pokemon battle, you both set off to explore Poké Path. Depending on which version you're playing, you'll find a weak legendary Pokemon at the beachfront by the Lighthouse. For Violet players, you will meet Miraidon, and for Scarlet players, you will meet Koraidon. You give Miraidon a sandwich that gives it some energy and it seems to be able to move again. As you and Miraidon make your way through a cave to return to the Lighthouse, Miraidon saves you from a pack of angry Houndour before slumping to the ground in exhaustion just outside the cave. So far, I was concerned and left with questions. Why is this legendary Pokemon so weak, and who could have caused this? As you reach the Lighthouse, you meet Arven, who has been looking after Miraidon. He doesn't seem to be too pleased that it's roaming Paldea. He's then rude towards you and Nemona, telling you both to shove off. Nemona recognises Arven, as he was in the same class, and because he's the son of the professor, Arven snaps as he says his lineage doesn't matter. He gives you Miraidon's Pokeball after you beat him in a battle and he seems happy to be rid of it. His anger and frustrations relate to the professor and Miraidon, yet he does not explain why and takes off. It is clear that he's hiding something and he'll be key to getting some answers. As you and Nemona make your way to the academy, you are challenged by Nemona once more, where she introduces you to terrestrialization and arranges for you to receive a Terra Orb. Terrestrialization is this generation's new feature, allowing a Pokemon to change into a new type known as their Terra type, as well as powering up their moves. Terrestrialization can only be used once, as the Terra Orb needs to be charged at the Pokemon Center every time it's used. While in Mesagoza, you help a student named Penny, who is being harassed by members of Team Star. Penny is a shy, introverted character who's adept with computers and technology. Team Star are a group of students who are pressuring other students to join their gang. They are also being accused of bullying. Moments later, you are contacted by Arven's parent, the Professor. Professor Sada for Scarlet players, or Professor Turo for Violet players. Professor Turo informs you that he was originally looking after Miraidon before he gave it to Arven, and asks if you can look after it for a while. A few days later, Director Clavel starts the treasure hunt assignment, an assignment where all the students go on a journey across Paldea to find something they can call their own personal treasure. And so you are introduced to 3 storylines at this point, which can be completed in any order or simultaneously: Victory Road, Starfall Street, and Path of Legends. Let's start with Victory Road. As mentioned earlier, Nemona is a champion ranked trainer, so she urges you to beat the 8 gym leaders and take the champion assessment at the Pokemon League. Similar to Sword and Shield, you need to complete a gym challenge before you can battle the gym leader. As you travel from gym to gym, you will run into Nemona, who will want to battle you from time to time, or just be there to support you. Later on in this storyline, you will meet Geeta, the Pokemon champion and the chairwoman of the Pokemon League. Geeta has a friendly and calm disposition and is always encouraging your growth as you progress through the gym challenges. Nemona admires Geeta, and in turn, Geeta respects Nemona, citing that Nemona needs a true rival who can challenge her. Nemona has already defeated Geeta, so it's clear that she never displays her true power or full team when battling you. As you do in previous Pokemon games, you'll challenge the Elite Four and then the champion once you've collected all 8 badges. Before you challenge the Elite Four, you have to pass a test where Rika, one of the members of the Elite Four, will ask you a series of questions. Once I defeated the Elite Four and Geeta, I was a little bit disappointed. They seemed easy compared to previous games, and then you have one final battle with your rival. This time she uses her strongest team and her name shows as Champion Nemona. After you defeat Nemona, she bursts into excitement as she finally has someone to rival her, showing her love for absolute strength from Pokemon battling. I had a few problems with this storyline as it felt a bit disjointed. Because Nemona accompanies you along the way and battles you frequently, you have already become accustomed to her team, so making her the champion makes it a lot easier to prepare for. And because the story isn't linear like previous games, this storyline feels a bit bare bones. The gym leaders and Elite Four are unique and interesting though, with some of them having eccentric personalities, crazy designs, and weird stereotypes. The Victory Road storyline is the weakest storyline out of the 3, but it still does a great job of bringing a traditional Pokemon gym experience from other games, as I enjoyed collecting badges on my journey. The next storyline is Starfall Street. Your phone is hacked by Cassiopeia, who asks for your help. They tell you about Operation Starfall, which is to take down Team Star. Team Star have 5 bases around Paldea, with a boss at each one. To challenge a base, you must defeat the guard at the entrance, which will give you access to the base. You will then need to defeat 30 of Team Star's Pokemon in a certain amount of time. This makes use of the auto battle mechanic, which is a new feature for this game. Your first 3 Pokemon are able to be sent out to battle Pokemon in the overworld. Once you beat 30 Pokemon, you can challenge the boss of the base. Director Clavel disguises himself under the moniker of Clive and meets you at each base. Clavel is disguising himself so he can learn more about the students without his seniority intimidating them. The first boss you are likely to meet is Giacomo. He is the leader of Team Star in the absence of the founder, which they refer to as Big Boss. His base specialises in Dark-type Pokemon. Giacomo used to be the student council president until his student conduct policies were too rigid and strict. This led to him losing the support of the students. He was then bullied and forced out of the position, and Nemona was elected as his replacement. Feeling ostracised, he found others who were being bullied and found company among this new group of friends, who then went on to create Team Star. His caring nature is what led to his friends trusting him to be the leader in the absence of the big boss. Giacomo created battle music as well as the code for Team Star, which is a boss cannot turn down a challenge and must give up their position if they are defeated. Clive shows up and asks why he skipped school and risks being excluded, which he explains that he and the other bosses were waiting for the big boss to return, as they have been missing for 18 months. The first boss encounter surprised me, as everything I thought I knew was flipped on its head. This member of Team Star was a victim of bullying, so what did they do after they created this group? The next boss is Mela. Mela's base specialises in Fire-type Pokemon. Mela has an unwavering desire to complete or fix any problems or issues she comes across, which earned her the trust of her friends. She was responsible for evolving a bunch of Charcadets so they could power the Starmobile. Mela was bullied by other girls as they were jealous of her cute appearance. She appears as a rough and tough character, but deep down she is kind and a loyal person. As stated by Eerie, another boss of Team Star, Mela is surly, as it was a way to make bullies stop picking on her. After you defeat Mela, a Charcadet named Charlos appears. Charlos was a Pokemon Mela used to play with and look after when she attended the academy. Clive also asked Mela about a rumour that Team Star were plotting against the academy, which Mela explains that this is false and people are still spreading lies. Mela asks Clive whether he has heard about Operation Star, which he explains he knows nothing about. This left me with intrigue, as I was eager to learn what took place during Operation Star. And so, we learn a bit more with the next boss, Atticus. His base specialises in poison-type Pokemon. Atticus is a descendant from a family of ninjas. He is also a highly skilled designer responsible for designing the outfits for the Team Star bosses. People find Atticus strange, and he was bullied for liking old-fashioned trends. Atticus has an eccentric and kind personality and speaks like a noble in medieval times. After defeating Atticus, a student called Yusuf begs Atticus to return to school as he doesn't want to see him get expelled. After Operation Start, students like Yusuf were able to return to school without the fear of being bullied, and Yusuf was grateful for this. The next boss is Ortega. His base specialises in fairy-type Pokémon. Ortega often makes snidey remarks and is short-tempered. He comes from a wealthy background and was bullied for bragging about his family's wealth. Ortega treasures his friends at Team Star more than anything. He is a genius mechanic and is responsible for designing the Starmobiles. After we defeat Ortega, Clive and Harrington show up. Harrington is the former director of the Academy and Ortega's piano teacher. Clive asks Harrington about Operation Star, which Harrington explains. Team Star grouped together to make a stand and confront their bullies. When this happened, the bullies fled without putting up a fight and dropped out of the academy, which led to scandals and rumours circulating. These events take place 18 months before this game. The deputy director wiped all the cases of bullying from the school records as he wanted to shield himself from blame. Harrington was deciding on how to take action against Team Star when a student approached him to explain that they were responsible for their actions. They asked him to punish them instead of the bosses, which he agreed to. He then supposedly sent this student for overseas study for 18 months, but the truth is he sent this student home to the Galar region to get some rest, as this student and Team Star were the victims in this incident. The entire teaching staff resigned as they felt responsible for not being able to prevent this situation from happening. Due to this and the records being wiped, the current teaching staff wasn't aware of prior events. The next and final boss is Eerie. Her base specialises in fighting type Pokemon. Eerie is the mother-like figure of the team as she is one of the oldest members and acts as a mediator when fights broke out. She is also responsible for helping the bosses with their Pokemon training. After you defeat Eerie, Carmen, a Team Star member, explains that Eerie was bullied by other students as they were jealous about her becoming the new class queen and her talent as an athlete. She reveals that she was the main culprit and started a rumour to try and get her former position back as class queen, but this backfired and eventually Carmen became the target of bullying. Eerie, showing her caring and compassionate side, helped Carmen, and the two have been strong friends ever since. Carmen joined Team Star as she appreciated everything that Eerie had done for her. After you take down all 5 bases, Cassiopeia reveals that they are the big boss who created Team Star. They wanted to disband the team as they could no longer operate in the same way, but due to the code, they have no say or authority over the other bosses. Cassiopeia asks you to meet in the schoolyard at night. Clavel removes his disguise and claims to be Cassiopeia, but after you defeat him, he admits that he was testing you to see if you can beat the real Cassiopeia. The real Cassiopeia shows up and it turns out to be Penny, the young girl that was being harassed to join Team Star. Ironically, is the big boss. She was also responsible for bringing you materials and transferring you LP points for each boss you defeated. After you defeat Penny in battle, we get a final look into the events that took place at the end of Operation Star. Team Star rounded up the bullies in the courtyard and challenged them to a Pokemon battle. The bullies were scared and apologised before the battle could take place. The bullies kicked up a fuss and quit the academy, giving Team Star a bad impression. Team Star and Penny realised they were going to get punished for their actions. As mentioned earlier, Harrington was trying to figure out a way to deal with Team Star. Penny was the student that took responsibility and went on leave to return home to the Galar region. After this flashback, Director Clavel reveals that all the Team Star bosses are watching the fight and they meet Penny for the first time. It's a touching moment which is cut short as Director Clavel explains that he will refrain from expelling them. However, he cannot overlook all the rules that they broke, so they have to do community service. He allows them to operate as long as they turn their bases into training facilities for trainers, which Team Star accepts. This storyline really moved me. What the developers done was clever and wonderful. At first, I was reluctant to play this storyline as I was concerned that Team Star would just be another iteration on the Team Rocket bad guy formula that we have seen in every Pokemon game. But they took that familiar concept and reversed it. They made a team of good people, and then they cleverly disguised it by hiding the truth about them behind rumours and a narrative that unravels over time. All the characters had to be endearing for this to work, and they nailed it. Ortega and Mela had unlikable qualities to make you think otherwise, but you could see it is a result of what they had been experiencing in their school life, and it became easier to empathise with these characters. As we know, school life is not easy for children, especially these days, as there are many facets of bullying, and it's only increasing with the rise and accessibility of social media. So having a story that is slightly grounded and seeing how these characters overcame these difficulties is really compelling. The final storyline is Path of Legends. Arven tells you about 5 giant Pokemon known as Titan Pokemon that are guarding a mysterious herb known as Herba Mystica. Herba Mystica is said to be a legendary herb that has amazing health benefits and is scattered around Paldea. Titan Pokemon are a variant type of Pokemon that are much larger than their original counterparts due to eating Herba Mystica, and so Arven asks for your help in defeating the Titan Pokemon so he can obtain the legendary herb. Each time you locate and defeat a Titan Pokemon, Arven creates a sandwich using Herba Mystica. Your player gives each sandwich to Miraidon, and it regains a bit of its strength each time. This unlocks one of Miraidon's traversal abilities, like the ability to swim, glide, or climb up mountainsides, giving the player access to new areas. Later in the storyline, Arven reveals that he wanted the Herba Mysticas to help heal his severely injured Pokemon, Mabosstiff. Arven begins to open up about his past and his relationship with the Professor and Mabosstiff. The Professor was always busy with their research in Area Zero, so Arven grew up with his companion Mabosstiff. He blamed Miraidon for taking up all of his parents' time. Arven just wanted the care and attention from his parent like any child would. This led to Arven attempting to visit Area Zero to find the Professor. Area Zero is a dangerous place located in a great crater of Paldea and is off limits for students and many people. This is where Mabosstiff got injured by an unknown Pokemon. After fleeing Area Zero in a flying taxi, he tried taking Mabosstiff to the Pokemon Center and giving it potions, but ultimately it failed. Mabosstiff's injuries were described as a special case. Arven was determined to save his companion, so he stopped going to lessons and committed his time to research. As Arven was searching for ways to save Mabosstiff, he discovers the Professor's Scarlet or Violet book and learned about Herba Mysticas. Once you've collected all the Herba Mysticas, Miraidon recovers all of its traversal powers. However, it still has not gained the ability to battle. Mabosstiff is still weak after eating the last sandwich, and it looks like it wouldn't be making a full recovery, until he barks and brings a Pokeball over to a shocked Arven, who rushes over and is overcome with joy seeing his companion move for the first time in a while. Shortly after, the Professor contacts you to ask that you and Arven should visit him at Zero Lab. He advises that you should bring 2 friends along to help on this dangerous journey. Arven challenges you to a battle to see if you're both ready to travel to Area Zero. After you defeat him, this concludes the Path of Legends storyline. Arven's character growth is fantastic and possibly the best throughout this game. At first, I thought he was going to be a Pokemon abuser of some sort due to how rude he was towards the player, and the fact he was supposed to be looking after Miraidon, yet we found it weak by itself on the beachfront. But in truth, Arven is a caring person who tried everything he could to save his companion. He also demonstrated this by trying to see his parents even though their relationship is fractured. I hoped that he would be reunited with the Professor so they could get back on track, so I was eager to meet the Professor in Area Zero. Now the 3 storylines have been completed, there is a final chapter to conclude the game. You and Arvin enlist Namona and Penny to travel to Area Zero as requested by the Professor. To access the lab, you need to travel to 4 research stations to hit a switch that unlocks the main door. As the group travels around Area Zero, they encounter a strange Pokemon they have never seen before. They are forced to battle and defeat it. Each station reveals a bit of the history about the Professor, terrestrialization, and what type of research was being conducted at Area Zero. The Professor contacts the player when they reach each station to explain a bit more about Area Zero and its inhabitants. The Pokemon you encounter are primeval or mechanical Pokemon, also known as Paradox Pokemon. Primeval Pokemon are exclusive to Scarlet and mechanical Pokemon are exclusive to Violet. In the final station near the bottom of the crater, the Professor starts acting strange as if he was malfunctioning and needed to reboot his systems, and Arvin notices this. Once you reach the entrance of the lab, a wild Miraidon appears and approaches your Miraidon with an intent to battle before it decides to enter the lab. The Paradox Pokemon appear and confront the group, forcing you to enter the lab alone while your friends fight off the Pokemon outside. In the lab, you discover that the Professor is an AI program robot and he explains everything that has transpired. Before the events of Scarlet and Violet, the Professor was part of a team that explored the Great Crater of Paldea. The Zero Lab was created after they discovered the terrestrialization phenomenon. This led to the development of the Terra Orb which they were praised for. The Professor then set up a lab at the Lighthouse where they were able to harness the unstable energy. As the Professor became intrigued with the idea of Pokemon from different ages, he focused all of his research on trying to develop a time machine. With this obsession, his wife, other scientists and financial backers walked away from him in this project. The Professor continued his studies alone until he developed an AI copy of himself using the Zero Lab crystals. He eventually succeeded in developing a time machine which would allow him to capture Paradox Pokemon from the future and bring them to the present. In Scarlet, Professor Sada does the same thing, but instead she brings the Pokemon from the past. The first Pokemon Professor Turo brought over was Miraidon, the Pokemon you've been looking after. They learned that Miraidon is a descendant of Cyclozar, a common Pokemon seen today around Paldea. The Professor and their new AI assistant attempted to transport a second Miraidon in the hopes they could bond together. They were unsuccessful for a while as they kept bringing other species of Pokemon to the present. Eventually, the Professor and the AI was able to bring a second Miraidon to the present timeline. However, this Miraidon was a lot more aggressive and territorial. The first and passive Miraidon was attacked by the aggressive Miraidon and the Professor was dealt with a fatal blow when they tried to protect it. The Professor eventually passed away due to his injuries and the AI was left to continue his work. However, it didn't agree with bringing Paradox Pokemon to this timeline due to how it would affect the ecosystem, and so this is why the AI contacted the player and Arvin. The AI needed help to put an end to the time machine as the AI couldn't do it itself due to its programming. When you get to the time machine, the AI's defensive protocols kick in and it challenges you to a battle. After you defeat the AI, your friends catch up to you. Arvin sees his parent for the first time and questions whether it's indeed his actual parent, but deep down, he feels as if he knew his parent had been long gone. A program called Paradise Protection Protocol launches, locking all Pokeballs that is not marked with the Professor's ID, and the AI challenges you once more, but this time it sent out the aggressive Miraidon. As you cannot use any of your Pokeballs, you are forced to send out the passive Miraidon to battle. The aggressive Miraidon has the upper hand at first, until the passive Miraidon overcomes its fears and defeats its opponent. The AI realizes that its code is integrated into the time machine, so it cannot be shut down whilst it's still present. The AI still has a desire to see what the future world looks like as its programming is to behave and think like the Professor. So the AI decides to travel to the future timeline, saying farewell to the player and Arvin. Arvin emotionally watches as the AI uses the time machine. He tries to convince the Professor to stay. However, he eventually comes to terms that his parent is deceased. The time machine shuts down for good, and the 4 students return to Paldea. Finding out that Arvin's parent had already died and the Professor is an AI was a sad moment for me. I was hoping that the professor was just trapped or something, as Arvin had been having a rough time throughout this journey, which showed in his personality and actions. During his growth, he became a likeable character, showing that he cares about his Pokemon. Instead, the professor is the unlikable character in this story. Once again, the developers have flipped the script. From experience with previous games, the professor is usually a caring and thoughtful person conducting their research, but none of them that I can recall were so obsessed that they neglected their responsibilities. Pokémon Scarlet and Violet gave me a pleasant surprise with its storytelling. These stories touched on slightly darker themes, such as how painful it is to lose a loved one, or how lonely a person can feel from being subjected to bullying and ostracism. It's a much more emotional impact when you see these characters overcome these difficulties, like when Arven manages to help Mabosstiff make a full recovery from its life-threatening injuries, or when Team Star's flashbacks show their newly found friendship after having nobody. And so, Pokémon Scarlet and Violet has one of the best stories in a Pokémon game due to the impact it provides on the consumer from its storytelling, flipping the script and subverting player expectations, and providing 3 stories that come together neatly to provide a compelling narrative. It's a shame that these games are held back by other aspects, like performance, technical and presentation issues. At first, I couldn't overlook these for a time, and so it took me a while to complete the game, but I'm glad that I did. I did struggle with new design features like the open world and non-linear structure, but in the end it was thoroughly enjoyable, and team building remained as fun as ever. Thank you very much for sticking around for this one. Now I want to hear what you have to say. How did you find Pokémon Scarlet and Violet? Did you enjoy its story? Or was the game's performance too much of a deal breaker for you? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this content and would like more around Pokemon games, please like and subscribe. My name is Jammer. You can find me on Twitter and Insta where my handle is Jammer the Gamer. But for now, thanks again and I'll speak to you soon. Peace.